In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the vivid effects of scrolling and the steps that you can take to reduce the amount of time that you spend scrolling on social media. So subscribe and stick around to the end to implement these tips and tricks into your life. And firstly, we're going to talk about the vivid effects of scrolling, and there are three, and the last two being like the most kind of unknown, yet simultaneously the most important. And the first is probably the one that you probably know about the most, which is your attention span gets reduced. And I think your attention span is how long it takes to go from thought to thought. And this has been reduced from 12 seconds in the year 2000 to 8 seconds on average in the modern day. And that is quite a significant decrease in the amount of time it takes to go from thought to thought, if you kind of think about it and ponder and reflect on that statistic. And the last two are like the most important, yet they're somehow not really known. And have you ever heard of something called ADHD? Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. And ADHD is like a thing in the brain where you are not able to focus and concentrate properly, which is why it's like attention deficit. And if you give a child like a phone and let them scroll on social media to their heart's content, they can genuinely develop like mild symptoms. They can genuinely develop ADHD, which is normally something that you have from birth, because of the amount of time that they've spent scrolling, because it kind of screws with their attention span and they have an attention deficit. See, it kind of all makes sense now. People and children especially, it's especially like children are especially susceptible to this, but children can genuinely develop ADHD and not even be from birth if they spend too much time scrolling on social media. And this is why it's so important to not let your kids on social media and just not spend your time on social media, because it could genuinely permanently be a detriment to you for the rest of your life, because you will genuinely not be able to focus as well as someone who is kind of normal. Their brain activity and their dopamine baseline levels are normal. And the second or the third vivid effect, but the second one that's kind of unknown, is that scrolling on social media genuinely causes tics. And tics are normally something that you get from Tourette syndrome, which is where you like involuntarily shout words or you move your limbs. And when some people are like studying, they're writing down their notes for their exams, they can genuinely sometimes like impulsively reach for their phone that is at the back of their desk, and they'll start scrolling because they are like they're so addicted to dopamine. Their dopamine levels are like absolutely fried in their brain that their brain is like going to force their arm to grab their phone and start scrolling, because they just need that dopamine and they can't do delayed gratification because of the amount of time they spend scrolling. And it's really sad when you think about it, that people's brains have kind of been altered by modern technology in such a huge way. This kind of stuff genuinely can detriment you, especially if you kind of give it to like a young child for the rest of their life. And there are steps that we can take to kind of reduce the amount of time that you spend scrolling. And obviously the first one is to just delete social media. But the problem is some people make money off of social media. And the thing that happened to me when I deleted Instagram and most of my social media apps is I still kept one social media app, which was YouTube, because it was like slightly more educational to me. However, once I deleted like Instagram and all that kind of stuff, I still eventually ended up scrolling on YouTube instead of scrolling on TikTok or Instagram. Like, I would just, instead of scrolling on Instagram Reels or TikTok, I'd just end up scrolling on YouTube Shorts, because like my dopamine levels were at such kind of a bad level. However, there are ways that you can stop scrolling entirely and actually use YouTube to a good purpose, or use social media for a good purpose. And the way to do that is to engage in meaningful activities. And by that, I mean, maybe you spend like 15 minutes scrolling in the morning, right? You wake up at 7, you spend 15 minutes scrolling, then maybe you shower, have breakfast, then you scroll before you walk to school, and then you get home from school and you start scrolling. Some people even scroll while they're eating their dinner, then they can watch like 2 hours of Netflix, all this kind of hyper-stimulating, overstimulating stuff, which is really bad for the brain, especially for a young child. And instead of like having that as your daily routine, you want to get up in the morning, do maybe 5 to 10 minutes of meditation. Normally it would be like 15 to 20, but because your dopamine levels are at such a bad level, 5 to 10 minutes of pure focus on your breathing is probably going to be quite difficult for you, considering the position that you are coming from. Like, you're coming from a place where your brain is like it's like destroyed. Your brain is fried. So you can only spend like 5 minutes meditating at a time. And then maybe you spend 5 minutes meditating, 15 minutes just writing down your thoughts and feelings in a journal. Then you can shower, then you can prepare a healthy breakfast, get into a conversation with your family or your friends, and then that's like a basic morning, and you've not even really been on your phone, and you've not really been scrolling as much. You just haven't decided to scroll because you've been dedicating your mornings. You have to dedicate your mornings. When you wake up, you've got to like say to yourself, you've got an affirmation that I am going to spend 5 minutes meditating, I am going to spend 15 minutes journaling, I am going to have a healthy breakfast and shower, and I'm going to like have a conversation with a family member. You have to dedicate yourself to renewing and repairing your dopamine and your brain, which is fried, by doing healthy, good habits that like a delayed gratification. And you've not even thought about scrolling or being on your phone while you're doing these good habits, because like your mind is focused elsewhere. Your mind is focused on journaling and meditating. Your mind is focused on eating a healthy breakfast instead of scrolling while you eat. Your mind is focused on showering. Your mind is focused on your family members and relatives. And then when you get home from school, instead of like watching Netflix and scrolling while you eat dinner, go for a run for 30 minutes or go to the gym for an hour and a bit. Maybe like go to a class or something, like an arts class, creative writing class, martial arts class. Do that for an hour and then have dinner. It may be like tough at first, but have dinner. Literally sit in a room where you've got no kind of distractions, no technology, no phone, no nothing. Just sit in a room and eat your dinner like on your own. Just sit at the table and just eat your dinner. It's as simple as that. That is one good way to kind of fix your attention span, because you're not like multitasking, because you still get dopamine from eating food, but you don't need the dopamine as like from scrolling as well as the dopamine from eating food, right? And they're just like a few simple steps that you can take. You basically just fill your time with actual meaningful activities instead of just scrolling all the time. Instead of scrolling for half an hour in the morning, you meditate for 5 to 10 minutes and journal and shower and eat a healthy breakfast and stuff like that. And your mind will be focused and dedicated to doing these delayed gratification activities instead of spending time indulging in the instant gratification that you get from scrolling. And the thing is, even while you're doing this kind of meditation and stuff, you may still experience those kind of tics, which I talked about earlier in the video. Oops, low battery. You may still experience those kind of tics where you literally impulsively grab your phone. And the way that I've dealt with that, because sometimes while I'm studying, like every kind of hour or so, it's probably more like less frequent for me. It's like every 2 hours, every hour or something. If like my phone's at the back of my desk and I kind of just impulsively grab it while I'm doing work, I literally just like chuck it over to the other side of my room. It's got a case on, so it's not going to break. Or I just literally walked over, put it in like the kitchen or the living room or another room in my house or something, and I can like let myself actually focus for once. Let myself focus on studying, and there'll be nothing there when I next have like a impulsive reaction to kind of grab my phone while I'm studying. Like there won't be any phone there, and I'll just have to get on with studying instead and do my delayed gratification activities. So I hope you found value out of this small video on the effects of scrolling, which may be kind of new to you. I may have educated you on something new today, which you can tell your friends and your family. And I hope I told you that how you can kind of mitigate the effects of scrolling and reduce the amount of time that you spend scrolling. And if you need any other help on anything kind of self-improvement related, my coaching calls are in the link in the description, and I recommend subscribing because it's free, and I love this community of young tribal men who are willing to improve themselves so much more than they already have.